we're going to be creating a 1-point perspective street with both perspective lines, vanishing point, true horizontal, true vertical lines, and horizon line. So the first thing we want to do is we want to find our vanishing point. So I'm going to create one right in the center here. So the way we'll know that's our horizon line, draw a horizontal line all the way across the paper. So this is our horizon line, vanishing point. And then next thing we'll do, we'll be creating our actual perspective lines, which will help us design our street. So first thing I'm going to do for our street, since this is what we're looking to, all the lines are going to pass through this one point. All of the lines have to go here, like diagonal through this point, or be a true vertical line or true horizontal line. Those are your options. So what I'm going to do first is going to create our street so that we know where the sidewalk is and where the buildings are going to be sitting on them. So that's going to be our sidewalk on our right side. This will be our sidewalk on our left side. So what we can do from here is also make a couple vertical lines to tell us how tall our buildings are going to be on our right side of our street. So again, when you're doing this, you'll make sure these are true vertical lines. So it helps if you know, if you like measure, like I'm using the 1 inch mark here, it's 1 inch on both sides. So I know this is a true vertical line. You don't want to be drawing the buildings like off to the side or like they're falling into each other. So to make sure they're true vertical lines, you can also use the edge of your ruler here and make some true vertical lines. Making them different heights will help make your street a little bit more, have more characteristics, be a little bit more unique, and so they're not all the same cookie cutter shape and design. So once we have our start of our faces to our buildings, so this would be like where the doors would be in those buildings. What we can do is start to connect those to our vanishing point. So by doing that, we are going to use our ruler. Make sure we're passing through the vanishing point. So that's we need everything to go through that spot, and then we're going to start to connect that to our actual tops of our buildings. So we want to make sure we're hitting the top of the first line here. We move the way. So now we can see that this is the face of our first building. So we know that this top line and this top line are eventually going to intersect because they both have to pass through that vanishing point. Whereas the left and the right side of that building are parallel. They will not cross each other. So we're going to do the same thing with the next vanishing point, or the next building. So we're starting to get these different heights of our buildings that we're creating on our street. Make some spaces in between our buildings here. So they have a little bit more like alleyways. So we'll do the same thing. again, going through the vanishing point, making sure we're at least touching the top of our the left side of our building. Sorry. Like so. So we're gonna do, but I'm gonna make sure we're hitting the back side of our last one here. So now we start to have our face to our buildings, like so we can imagine this is like where a door would be. And so now what we're gonna do is start to make them feel three-dimensional. So to do that, we need to make our buildings go left to right. So this is how we create depth to our actual buildings. So by doing so, I'm going to hold my ruler, make it a true horizontal line from the highest part of our building, and go left to right. So we're going to do that both at the top and at the bottom of our building. Do that for both. We're going to do this for all the buildings we have. So you can see typically most of the buildings are going to be blocked by the building behind it, but since we have our third building here is taller than our fourth, we need to determine where the backside of that building is. So we're going to say it's about here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another true vertical line. And so now we have our face of our building and the backside of our building. So now we are starting to design volume to our actual buildings here. You can start to see that these like little triangles in between are starting to design like our alleyways to our streets. So I'm just going to fill those in with a little gray there so you can tell the difference between our buildings and our streets, our alleyway. So we're starting to get a little volume and characteristics to our designs here. We can also do the same thing to our actual street. So I'm gonna make our street look like it is up, so this would be like the sidewalk. And so on a sidewalk, you want the pavement to be horizontal, but where the depth of it, how tall it is, has to be vertical. So we're gonna use both horizontal and vertical lines on creating the pavement. So again, making sure these are true horizontal lines when you're creating your pieces. So as the buildings are getting as the sidewalk is getting farther away, we might want to start making these lines a little bit closer together, just because that'd be it's called foreshortening, where things are receding away from you, and from your viewpoint, they would look closer and closer together as they get farther away. If you need to, you can keep rotating your paper so that you can move. It might be easier to move your paper instead of keep moving your ruler. But just I have the paper taped down in the demo, so it's up to you, whatever you prefer when doing so. Alright. So as it would go away, so you can see the street is getting farther and farther away from us, or the sidewalk. So now what we want to do is use the same spot we have, like how we did with the tops of the buildings. So we're using anchor points that we already recognize, and then we're going to make those our true vertical lines. So what you're going to be trying to emphasize in your drawing is creating a three-dimensional illustration of a 1-point or 2-point perspective drawing. And so to do that, it helps when you start to give parts of your street and the buildings this idea and characteristic of volume. So that's what we're doing here, where we're creating our street. We're making it read as a three-dimensional form. So now it looks like there's a sort of a step up to get onto the sidewalk, which is separate than the actual buildings themselves. And then they look like they have volume that they're separate from each other, illustrating this idea of like a alleyway between these buildings. So this will be applied to both the left and the right side of your drawing, trying to make it more and more characteristic. So start to add more and more things that represent the street that you want to design. It does not have to be something from real life, but you can just make it up on the spot. Make sure you want to include some different characteristics to make them unique to yourself. So I'll add a couple doors, windows, awnings, and signs in this next couple of minutes here, so we can see how to make those, as well as why and how to make them in perspective. So first thing we'll start to add some doors here. Same thing, doors are true vertical on the left and the right side of your drawing. Again, make sure they're tall, at least tall enough to fit like your hypothetical person into them. You don't want them to be super tiny, don't want them to be super tall, they don't want to be as tall as your actual building. So just make sure they sort of fit the feel of your design. So we'll do a couple doors here. So if we're looking at these two, so before our vanishing point lines, we're going up above our anchor point, or our vanishing point. So our perspective lines were going up for the tops of our buildings, but now they're going to be going down because at the horizon line, our doors are below our horizon line, so the perspective lines have to go down as well. So we're making sure our ruler is going through the vanishing point. So make these doors at different heights here. So you can always go back and erase parts that you don't need. It helps doing this as you go through so that you don't get confused, and make sure you're keeping all the correct lines you need to do, you need to use for your drawing. So we'll say this building here has the doors that are open. Like they go right into the building. So if I want to make sure like they're open and look like someone can go right in, I'm going to make sure I'm using this as my anchor point where these 2 points meet. I'm going to make a true horizontal line again. So now it looks like someone could go into this open building. It like recedes, it goes into that spot. For this one, I'm going to make a awning so that someone will be able to go in and use that if it's like a restaurant, say. So I'm going to make the top of the awning now. So now I'm going to make a diagonal line. You can sort of make this however you want. But whatever angle you use here, you want to make sure it's the same. So you want to keep your ruler this straight and drag it across. And so then that line has to go through the vanishing point as well. It's the edge of your awning. So that'd be covering up part of our top of our door here, covering up part of the width of that building. These would be a true horizontal line. Here's like the bar or like the metal beam that would be holding up our awning. And then if I was using this line here, that was the edge of our, these are two parallel lines here. We can use that as a guide if we want to make this, maybe this awning has stripes. So again, keeping your ruler straight so that you don't start to create a move from parallel to intersecting, or make sure the ruler stays in the same direction so that your design doesn't keep changing. So now we made an awning, an open door. If this door was closed, say for this building, we'd still use another vertical line. Try to find like the center of that door, which may just be here. True vertical line. Make little doorknobs. So we have an awning, open door. We'll make a couple windows here as well, and we'll make a couple signs. So same thing with the windows. Windows are going to go through the vanishing point, the tops and the bottoms of those windows. But the left and the right side of those windows are true vertical lines. So again, you want to make sure you're making true vertical and true horizontal lines when you need to. You can add like little edges to those. Maybe like if you, but then some of the characters that you'll be making might be freehand. So say there was like drapes in these windows, these might be free-handed. Since these are not a man-made form, they do not need to go by perspective. Since they are sitting in a perspective area, just make sure they sit in that direction. Anything that's not on a perspective side, so like this face of this building faces the street, so it goes through perspective. If it's on the opposite side, so this part which has the true horizontals and true vertical lines, these are just square windows, square doors. Same thing on this one. Anywhere that's not facing the vanishing point does not need to be in perspective. So we'll make a sign that goes on top of this building. So the top and the bottom of that sign are in perspective, and the left and the right side of that sign are true verticals. Then we're gonna make that sign have a little bit of a depth to it, so it has some thickness. So we're gonna make sure that that is a true horizontal line. The top and the bottom, those. And then that thickness is also going to be in perspective. So we have to make sure the little metal poles that will be supporting this are also in perspective. Or true vertical lines, I'm sorry, not perspective. So now it has some support for that sign, whatever that might read. If it says pizza, maybe it has a picture of a pizza. Maybe there's like dripping cheese. Pepperoni, maybe pepperoni eyes, I'm not sure. Like a piece of pepper as a smiley face, I'm not sure. But so now you're starting to make give your street a little bit more characteristic, even though it might have generic stuff like buildings, awnings, windows. Then you start to go back and add a little bit more characteristic that defines what your location looks like. So I'm going to work on this whole thing. I'm going to speed up the end result, but you'll be able to see what it looks like.